Melanie Beckler here. In this video, we're going to look at the 3 types of higher spiritual beings that you need to be aware of, including discerning beings of false light. So this is a topic that there's a great deal of confusion about in the New Age and spiritual community. On one hand, there are people who are perceiving all beings who are more advanced and higher vibrational and in the spiritual realms as being beneficial to work with or to listen to or to tune into as guides. And this is, from my perspective, not really true. On the other hand, there are people who are waving the false light flag and essentially saying don't connect with higher spiritual beings because beings of false light exist who want to trick you and deceive you and lead you astray. And that, from my perspective, is not exactly true either. So, as I have come to understand it, and this differentiation of 3 types of spiritual beings is really clearly taught in the work of Rudolf Steiner, who was big in the Rosicrucian tradition in the 20th century. So in his teaching, he explains higher spiritual beings as in beings who are more evolved, more advanced, more aware than humanity, as falling into 3 classifications or 3 categories of beings. And the first category is what are called Michaelic beings, or Christic beings, or beings of the middle path. These are the higher spiritual beings who are the most beneficial to connect with because they are perfectly balanced in their mastery of the spiritual realms and mastery of the physical realms. And as a result, they're able to connect with physical beings, and they're able to connect with the highest light of spirit. Direct access, a direct link to source, to God, to the infinite. Beings such as Christ, Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, the authentic ascended masters, and really beings of the angelic hierarchy and beings who are on track and on pace with their higher spiritual evolution are beings of this middle path, who are reliable spiritual guides to guide you into advanced levels of spiritual development without getting pulled off center, without getting pulled to the overly spiritual or overly materialistic realms, both of which are actually the 2 other types of spiritual beings. So essentially, beings of the middle path, Michaelic beings, Christic beings, these are powerful and reliable allies in spirit who can guide us all in our spiritual development, in staying on track in our own journey of expanded self-awareness and ascension without getting pulled to either extreme. So this brings us then to the second type of higher spiritual being, which is the beings who are overly spiritual. In the Rosicrucian tradition, these were called Luciferic beings. And before you get too freaked out by that, that is essentially referring to the being who, yes, was Lucifer, which literally means being of light. And so the beings of light who are overly spiritual, who are unbalanced, who have essentially fallen off their normal evolutionary path as angelic beings because of their turning away from the physical and solely focusing on the spiritual realm, are known as Luciferic beings. These are unreliable guides for us as humans. These are the beings who are often referred to as false light. But the thing is, their light isn't false. Their light is real. And they do have gifts that they bring. They offer psychic predictions, and they shine with incredible light. But their light is distorting. Their light is blinding. Their light is ungrounded, and their teachings and their guidance leads seekers to be unbalanced and ungrounded as well, leads to levels of spiritual illusion and distortion. They're not overtly malicious, but because they've fallen out of balance, they no longer recognize the role of physical incarnation. And so they don't honor or see the blessings and the opportunities of lessons that we as spiritual beings in the physical have through being in physical form. And so they have a way of looking down on humanity with a sort of condescending pity, like, oh, look at these poor, unevolved little beings who incarnated as physical beings without any real benefit. And this just isn't really true, because there's so much benefit in being a spiritual being in physical form. But the Luciferic beings, the overly spiritual beings, don't see this. So they are more highly evolved, they are more expanded, and so they have guidance and wisdom and knowledge to share. But they also tend to get spiritual seekers to fall off that middle path, off that highest path of balanced growth and spiritual development. So one of the ways that they negatively influence those on the spiritual path is by overinflating the ego. So a sign that you may be working with a Luciferic being is they tell you how amazing you are, what a master you are, how special you are. So this is a sign of Luciferic beings. Also, they have a way of devaluing the material lessons and opportunities for growth, leading towards spiritual bypassing, or actually encouraging beings to ingest substances that weaken or even poison the physical body, but lead to spiritual experiences. So drugs and hallucinogenics and opiates are often influenced by spiritual beings of the Luciferic variety. One thing that I want to clarify here is that we're all influenced by spiritual beings in almost every moment. We're all surrounded by an entire ocean of spiritual beings who are influencing us in a way that's often beyond our conscious awareness. And this is why it's so key, so essential to increase awareness and to increase discernment, to become aware of when you're being influenced by spiritual beings and when thoughts are arising from within yourself. Because often spiritual beings connect through your subconscious mind, and so you think that impulse to action, that desire, is actually your own, when actually it may be influenced by a higher spiritual being. Knowing this, becoming aware of this, is essential, and then becoming aware of, is that being who is influencing you doing so in alignment with your highest and greatest good to keep you moving on your ascension path, your evolutionary journey on the middle path? Or are you being influenced by a Luciferic, an overly spiritual, or an Ahrimanic, an overly materialistic being? So that's the third type of higher spiritual being, is the Ahrimanic. And these beings also are more advanced than humanity. They're older and they've gone through more cycles of evolution, but they too have fallen off the middle path. They, in a sense, have elevated up to the archangelic level, but then have fallen off course by being overly focused on the physical and material plane. They're not all bad. They helped create the physical realm, and so they, in a sense, are required for us as physical beings to grow and to ascend. This polarity of beings gives us opportunities to grow and opportunities to discern, to consciously choose the middle path. The guidance of Ahrimanic beings, in many senses, is malicious. They're masters of physical creation, of density, and yet they've evolved past the need to incarnate into physical form, and so they like manipulating physical reality from the spiritual realms. And one of the ways that they do this is by influencing physical beings to ignore the spiritual realities, to deny that there's anything happening beyond what can be proved scientifically and beyond what can be felt, touched, seen, experienced through the physical senses. They encourage materialism and teach that matter is the only reality and that spirit is illusion. And when spiritual seekers sort of ignore the influence to ignore the realms of spirit, they're fake, they're illusion, only matter is real, the Ahrimanic beings sort of shift their approach, and their guidance and impulses shift to getting physical beings to focus on lower, distorted levels of higher spiritual realities. So low level magic and black magic or gray magic that's all about manifesting. It taps into the desire nature, and it's about calling to us the things we want to have and experience in life at the cost of others. So this is essentially black magic. It's manifesting at whatever cost, even if that hurts another, and it is running rampant in our world under the subtle, often totally behind the scenes and beneath the surface, influence of the Ahrimanic being. They teach their students how to manipulate physical reality, how to acquire wealth and power in order to influence others, and how to engage in these lower level black magic manifestation techniques that feed the desire nature. So I wrote this down for clarity. The word Aramaic comes from the Zoroastrian tradition, where the Ahriman was believed to be the dark beings of materiality. And in Gnostic teachings, this dark being was called the Demiurge. In Egypt, the dark being was called Set. And when the Egyptians influenced later Hebrew religions and traditions, the dark being became known in Hebrew as Ha-Satan, which in modern religion and modern culture is now understood as Satan. And so this is really interesting because we have on one side of the coin the overly spiritual beings who are known as Luciferic, tied to the being Lucifer. And we have beings, on the other hand, who are overly materialistic, tied to Set or tied to the being Satan. And both of these beings are not the most beneficial for humanity to connect with. And yet in modern teachings, these two separate sides of the coin, these two separate sides of duality have been merged into one as a being known as Lucifer or Satan. But now you know the underlying deeper insight about that, and that there are actually these two sides of detrimental higher spiritual beings, and the most benefit we as sincere spiritual seekers can get comes from the beings of neither, the beings of the middle path, who have mastered the light and mastered the physical and perfectly balance these two and can guide us to do the same. So just to recap, the Luciferic beings have a way of pumping up the ego. They bring great light and great gifts, but their teachings become illusory and ungrounded. The Aramaic beings guide humanity to lose spirituality, or they'll draw people into low magic that only fuels desire nature and doesn't have the highest interest of all in mind. It's a service to self paradigm. And the spiritual beings who connect with us on the middle path, the way that we can encourage this connection is through our own resonance and clarity. It's the warmth in our hearts, the love in our field, the clear, sincere intent to be of service in the highest interest of all, to grow and evolve as beings, to claim our self-empowerment, and through clarifying our own thinking, through learning to quiet the monkey mind of ego chatter and quiet negative thoughts and doubts and distorted thinking, and through clarifying our feeling and learning how to hold the field of love, to hold the field of neutrality, and hold the field of all is well, and clarifying our will impulses and learning how to act upon the impulses that are in alignment with our highest good and our core intention, and to ignore the impulses from distorted spiritual beings or teachings empowers us to hold the center, to attract the beings of the middle path that truly are of the highest light, because on the middle path, beings are able to ascend so much higher than the distorted light of the Luciferic. So the beings of the middle, of the highest Christed light, who can help us in our journey as spiritual beings in physical form to continue on our own journey of balanced spiritual growth and development. So these are the three types of higher spiritual beings and my insight into the false light paradigm. I have written about this topic in much more depth and detail. It's easier for me to clearly write than it is to make videos sometimes. So I will put a link to that blog post up here. Highly recommend you check that out to really understand this, because understanding is a key to then being able to discern. And again, discernment is so important. Discerning, are the thoughts that are arising, are the impulses to action that are arising within you coming from yourself? And if so, are they habitual default responses, or are they intentional? And if they're not coming from you, are they coming from spiritual beings? And then what is the nature of those spiritual beings who are guiding you? Okay, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you like it, if you like this style of video, let me know. Again, these are just the three types of higher spiritual beings, but there are many other types of spiritual beings we could talk about. So let me know if you want to talk about that. Comment below. Give this video a thumbs up. It helps this channel so much when you engage. So definitely comment and like if you enjoyed. Subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And then I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. I love and appreciate you. Bye for now.